to Apex City. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Lenny.
And I'm Christina.
And today we're going to be talking about the setting for our game, Apex City, I guess, as you might have... Wow, that's a bad intro. Cool! So, Apex City is what happens when Chicago and Seattle have a baby, and then they both leave it to be raised by Metropolis while they go off and have an adventure. It's a kind of a big industrial city, so there's a lot of corporations, there's a lot of construction, there's a lot of, research and development that happens. It's not quite as, shiny or as, refined. Not pristine, thank you, that's a good word. Demographically, about 2.5 million, of which about 7% are what we're calling in-setting fragments, and those are basically legally friendly mutants or metahumans or what have you, and they're just people who have been born with different abilities. Obviously, you also have your science and magic-based heroes, so that number's probably a little bit higher, but give or take 175,000 on-the-record superpowered individuals at any given time. So, pretty decent population. So things that we want to know about Apex City, right? I know we have established already that there is a university.
Yes.
And I actually kind of want to ask you some questions about the university.
Sure, go right ahead.
How big is it?
I would say fairly small. I've always pictured it as a smaller, more communal college than like a big city kind of guy. Maybe this is the not the most prestigious school in Apex City.
Okay.
Or near Apex City.
Sure. Not really known for its schooling system. So Apex U is more of a community college that you go to without such high hopes.
Yeah.
Sure. And then kind of adjacent to that, we also have the Apex City public school system.
Yes.
Is this the kind of system where schools have names or numbers?
Oh, man. I've never been in a school system where they had numbers.
Yeah, me neither.
I just assumed it was names.
I mean,
I kind of like the numbers.
That works. That works with Apex City's kind of feel, because I know as you move out from the city center, it's a grid system and it's all numbered streets. Streets don't even have names until you start getting out into the suburbs. So it makes sense that their school system would be kind of, public school 137.
Yes. Definitely considered this particular public school to be inner city.
Oh no, I like it, definitely. So let's talk about some of the characters in Apex City. Hero-wise, we have probably, and I did a lot of writing for this, I apologize, probably way more than I should have. So your most notable hero is called Axiom, and Axiom has been around since World War II-ish. The original Axiom was a guy named John Nails Ackman. He's a tank driver who stumbled across a UFO that had been captured by the Nazis, rescued the aliens they were experimenting on, and was gifted with a nanotech energy suit.
I see.
To fight for freedom.
Okay.
And that's all detailed in the pages of the All-American Axiom. And then after that, round about the 60s, people were kind of falling at, he was a very conservative, very, pro-America, go war, nationalist kind of icon. And so around, the 60s, 70s, that kind of fell out of favor. And the mantle passed on to a guy named Glenn Garfield, who was a small-time burglar that got in the middle of a fight between Axiom and Professor Paradox.
Okay.
Axiom got very injured, and so the suit passes on to Glenn Garfield, who learns more about himself and grows as a person over the pages of the Unflappable Axiom. And then more recently, Garfield has retired as he's getting kind of older and has passed the mantle on to the as yet unidentified Absolute Axiom.
I see.
I did a lot of writing for this game. I'm sorry.
I apologize.
But yeah, you guys have kind of the big character list, so are there any ones that you actually like or that you want more information about?
Let's see.
Well, I mean,
I like Tony Rex Dakota.
Obviously the best character.
He's definitely, I think, worth going into.
Tony Rex Dakota, sure. So Tony Rex Dakota is a Silver Age hero whose one and only power is to turn into a T-Rex. And he insists on fighting street-level crime, despite the Apex City police politely asking him not to, because when a T-Rex is foiling like a purse snatching, that doesn't really help anyone.
It's a lot of collateral damage.
How many purse snatchings are there in Apex City?
Very few, like, surprisingly fewer now that Tony Rex Dakota's in the
Good job, Tony Rex Dakota!
You'd think that'd be a deterrent of some sort.
Oh, yeah. No, I always have just the image in my head of Tony Rex Dakota, like, talking to a school full of children about, like, safety. You're like, remember to look both ways before you cross the street, kids! Mm-hmm. And, just as a T-Rex.
Right, as he's snacking on a pig.
Right, just a whole goat, just... Yep. Tony Rex Dakota says, don't take unlicensed superpowers out of the back of vans from strangers. Right. Call your Apex City police.
Because he wasn't invited to the school.
Does he work with the police, or do the...
So I guess, let's talk about the Apex City Police. So being a police department in a city full of superpowered individuals is probably a very stressful job. Mm-hmm. And they do their best. A lot of what they are trained to do is de-escalate situations, because, let's be honest, there's a villain in this city called Bulletproof. He is literally bulletproof.
Not a lot you can do there.
Like, Bulletproof's MO is to smash through a bank, take the entire vault, and then leap a couple of miles off. How do you stop that with a taser? You just don't.
He's not taser-proof, he's just bulletproof.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't know. We should get into that. First villain, Bulletproof. Alright, cool. Everyone get your tasers ready.
Got it.
But yeah, so the Apex City Police they don't officially work with heroes. They are officially a separate entity, and they don't really recognize vigilante justice as being a good thing, but at the same time, they respect that these superpowered individuals are probably the best counter to the other superpowered individuals.
Okay.
So they mostly let you do your own thing, as long as you're not causing, excess collateral damage, hence why they keep politely asking Tony Rex Dakota not to foil street-level crime.
So, is it, illegal to be a vigilante?
No.
Okay.
So this is kind of, when you get into masks as a whole, that is one of the core concepts, is that you as a group are not being hunted. So while you might not be a sanctioned superhero team, the government is not actively out to shut you down.
Okay.
There's also an organization called COPI, C-O-P-I, which is the Center for Oversight of Powered Individuals. And it's basically a government group to, oversee, try and keep track of who these people are, where they are, what their agendas are, warn citizens, try and evacuate them, which the police also do a lot of.
Kind of like a OSI?
Kinda, yeah. If you're looking at Venture Brothers, kind of like an OSI, except they are adamantly not a Black Ops superhero response group.
Of
wink,
course.
wink.
Absolutely
air
not.
Quotes.
No way.
They're definitely not that.
So exactly like OSI.
Exactly like, yes. And I like that we've also established that they run an orphanage.
They do.
For superpowered individuals who might have nowhere else to go. Because, how many tragic superhero backstories end with both of your parents, out of the picture?
Quite a few.
Yeah,
almost all of them. Yeah, lots of them.
What do they do with the orphans that age out of the system? Are they COPI recruits?
That's a great question. Officially, no, because they are not a Black Ops superpowered response team. So officially, no, absolutely not. Probably yes. They, outside the public eye, definitely do work with certain superheroes. They definitely, interact with them on a regular basis, and they probably suggest things like sidekicks or, protégés, or like, this person has a similar power set to you. Maybe you could teach them how to use that responsibly.
So, in general, are the COPI people non-powered? Or do they have powered agents?
I think the main bulk of them are non-powered individuals.
Okay.
The main leadership of the group is definitely not.
Okay.
And they probably do have some powered individuals. Maybe not acting openly, like like they don't have a vest that has COPI on it.
So, they dissuade membership amongst powered people?
I think it's more that they don't actively
They don't
recruit.
use them as, field agents, perhaps?
Yeah, because that would set a bad precedent, right?
Okay.
That would probably look bad on them. Because they're not a Black Ops superhero response group.
Well, no, but they could just be a government organization hiring people.
Oh, sure.
Like, I assume
they're not going to discriminate. Like, if someone wants to join COPE and they have powers, like, you obviously have to use those responsibly, not as a member of COPE.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, they're officially just a monitoring group, so your ability to shoot, plasma beams from your face is not really useful in that regard. Very useful in certain other regards.
Sure.
That they officially deny.
I would like to talk about the rabble.
Yes! So, when we were talking earlier about demographics, we talked about fragments, which are people who are just born a little bit differently. The rabble is a group of fragments that have kind of banded together for mutual benefit. They are not officially a team. They are not even officially really organized. They do have a loose leadership, but they're basically there to protect fragments from if your neighbor, has a kid that has gills and can't breathe on their own outside of water, they'll set you up with like a cool rebreather unit so that your kid can go outside and play ball, right? And by that same, that same token, if someone is like harassing, a group of fragments, they're probably going to get involved in that.
How do they know when something like that has happened? How do they have some sort of monitoring system?
A lot of it is word of mouth.
Okay.
They operate very much just on people getting in touch with their members. They have a couple of high-profile members.
I was really hoping word of mouth was going to be the name of some like superhero they had, and just like track people.
It is now.
That's really good. Word of mouth.
Yes, no, it definitely is now, and that's how this game works. If you think something's a thing, it is a thing.
So who funds the rabble? Like they must. Like, they get rebreathers, they must get them from somewhere.
Oh, definitely.
There's definitely fragments who have, powers to lend in such a way. Like, there's a technopath fragment, perhaps, who would be like, I have an answer to this.
It's like private millionaires.
It's I don't know if I would say private millionaires. I would say more like a small commune.
Okay.
Who, are just okay with helping each other.
Yeah.
And, it's more of a network of people who would help rather than people who are dedicated to helping one specific thing.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of this comes down to, as well, there's a lot of crowdfunding. They are very tech-savvy. They are very social media savvy.
Okay.
Aside from that, unofficially, they do get help from COPE sometimes.
Okay.
So they are not actively affiliated with, and they probably don't even know who they're working with, but they've got some people on the inside.
Okay. What does COPE think of them?
Officially,
they just need to be monitored.
Yeah, they just need to be monitored. Unofficially, they probably think they're dangerous.
Okay.
They probably think that they very much need closer monitoring, and they probably have moles inside the rabble as well. People that they are either pretending to be fragments and just have some other sorts of powers, or actually are fragments. And
it's definitely not the amazing mole girl.
It's definitely not. No, she's different.
She's legit.
She's very underground.
Yeah.
I'll just see myself out. So things to know about this, because we haven't really talked about the game at all, about what we're playing. We're playing a game called Masks: A New Generation. I guess I should have mentioned that before we were 15 minutes into this thing.
Probably.
Yes. Which is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. They tend to be very narratively driven. You have labels. You have 5 labels that kind of determine how you see yourself. So it's different from a lot of RPGs in that you don't have stats that tell you, like, this is how strong I am, or this is how tough I am. It's, this is how much of a freak I see myself as. This is how much I think that I am not like a normal person. This is, danger is how much do I see myself as being a danger to people around me. And all of these labels have an upside and a downside. So for, danger, you can get in and you can, you know that you're dangerous in a fist fight. You can punch people in the face. You can directly engage threats. But also, you know that you're likely to hurt people close to you. So it's more about how you see yourself than about how other people see you. And one of the key themes in this game is figuring out who you are, especially as a young superhero. So your labels, especially at the beginning, are going to be moving a lot, as everything and everyone and every situation tells you what they think you should be. You kind of internalize that a little bit. There's a mechanic called influence, which is this person is someone that you care about their opinion for whatever reason, and when they say things about you, it affects you. And at the beginning of the game, literally every adult has influence over you. Heroes, villains, everyone. Your teachers, your parents, definitely. And as you grow, you can start rejecting that influence. You can start saying, no, I don't care what you think, this is who I am.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
This is your dream, Dad.
You're not my space dad.
Space dad.
No, I'm definitely looking forward to how that's going to play out. The first time a villain tells you what they think of you, and just to watch everyone try and reject their influence. It can go very well, or it can go very poorly.
Okay.
Other things to note: it doesn't really use a traditional experience system, so you don't gain experience and then go up a level. We have potential, which is kind of what experience is, and the main way that you gain potential is by failing at things. So whenever you fail a roll, you mark potential. And when you mark so many potential, you take an advancement, which can be things like taking a new move from your playbook, taking a move from someone else's playbook, shifting your labels, or locking a label in place, or unlocking your moment of truth. Moment of truth is a thing that every playbook has, and playbooks are kinda like classes in other RPGs, but they're more like, this is what kind of hero I want to be.
Right.
And your moment of truth tells you what you are when you are most yourself. It is the one moment where you fully come into your own, you can do basically whatever you want, you can make yourself, you take control of the narrative for that scene, for that moment. And then afterwards, you get to lock a label, so this aspect of yourself is now something that you know for sure. So it's a really cool mechanic there.
We're going to be playing a lot in Apex City. I want to know a little bit more about it.
Okay. So what especially do we want to know about?
Do you have any idea of how the city was formed? Was it
Yeah.
Is it an old city, or is it more of a place where people gathered and the city kind of erupted?
Sure. So, geographically, we are playing inside the continental U.S. Most superhero games, the cities are going to be on one coast or the other. Apex is not. Apex is actually on a river that I'm calling the Kinney River, which is thematically the Mississippi River.
Okay.
It's just named the Kinney in this particular setting. We're like 2 steps away from reality here.
Right.
It is it started off as a trading city. It was just a stop along the river where people decided, you know what, I'm far enough inland, I'm going to live here now. And over time, that kind of built up into this big industrial population center.
Was there anything specific that was being traded?
I mean, at the time, you're talking, like furs, you're talking food, you're talking, basic commerce in the early, 1800s, which I am not very familiar with.
Well, like
Ivory.
Ivory, yes. You know
my
what?
Hometown,
Ivory trading, yes.
My hometown of Ambler, Pennsylvania was actually founded as a asbestos town.
Oh, I like that.
Do we want... Okay, yeah, no. Ivory and asbestos. The Apex City story.
Yeah, there are some big cryptid, wild pigs that run around and use their ivy.
In the little setting primer I wrote, I did note that outside Apex City, there are probably lots of cryptids.
Exactly.
There are some national parks that exist outside the city, and
I'm creating the Apex boar.
Yes,
the Apex pig.
The Apex boar, which is probably where the city gets its name from.
Yes.
And so the mascot of the Apex school system is
the Apex boar.
Is the boar, yeah. It's the Apex boar.
It's our own little
yes, 3-tusked boar.
Is the third tusk on one side or the other, or is it like a unicorn horn? Like right in the middle.
I like right in the middle.
Like right in the middle.
Just 3 really big ones and then some little ones in there. You'd really help.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay. So we've learned something about our setting.
Zera used to be lousy with these.
Yeah, and they were hunted to near extinction.
I think their third tusk.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks they're extinct at this point.
There's a couple left in the zoo.
Yeah, but in the wild, they don't exist.
Basically
they just they're just you're never going to run into one of those ever. Definitely not.
No way.
Never. And then I think we had also talked about how this city kind of relates to the surrounding area. So now that we know that it was a kind of a trade hub, it still kind of is. And we had talked about or at least in the primer I had set in, there are kind of two major highways that split the city in two, and that's what the grid system is laid out around. So west to east, you have Remembrance Way, or the Rem Way to the locals, because no one can be bothered to say that whole thing every time.
Yeah.
And then north to south is the Simonson Parkway. And these two are definitely big trade routes, I think. So there are lots of, lots of trucks that come through here. Right. There are lots of... I'm sure there's an airport in Apex. Yeah. Right?
So these are like local names for like interstate highways?
Yeah. And I will never say which ones they are.
No, of course not.
But,
Interstate 13,000.
Interstate 174 billion, I don't know. But yeah, and I think that's a lot of what Apex does now. It's an industrial town, so they do a lot of, high-end production. So a lot of this is commerce that is coming out of the city and going to other places.
Right.
Your cutting edge, biotechnical medical supplies are, stamped made in Apex City.
So, are there any, like, big monuments here that people in other cities would, like, recognize?
Apex War statue.
Right.
Sure.
Like, do they have things?
No, I think in the city center, I actually like that.
Yeah.
Like the Wall Street Bull,
yes.
right? Mm-hmm. I think there's a similar statue of a three-tusked boar, of an Apex boar.
Absolutely.
And I think on its back is, like, the city center, like skyline, right?
I think that I really like the Apex boar as a mascot for the city, especially since it's like, a tough, kind of gross, dirty animal.
Yes.
And like the city is like, this is ours and we love it.
Right.
Yeah. We love this gross, dirty animal.
Yes, and if you don't, then screw you.
Get out of town.
Yeah. Get out of here.
No, I like it. I like that a lot.
Do they have like iconic buildings? Like, do we have a Sears Tower or something like that?
We definitely do. I don't know what it's named. For all I wrote, I didn't really name buildings a lot, did I?
Yeah. I know we have the Heron Group operating.
We have the Heron Group, and I think the Heron Building is probably the biggest building in the city center.
That makes sense.
I think it's like an actual cluster of buildings that all kind of come together, like skyways and walkways.
Sure.
And,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have like a Space Needle or a St. Louis Arch or anything like that?
We actually do have the St. Louis Arch. It is in Apex City. It is the Apex Arch.
It was stolen from St. Louis by a supervillain.
Relocated, we like to say.
And it was just too much of a logistical nightmare to bring it back.
It was one of Professor Paradox's earliest heists, and no one's ever fixed it.
Yeah.
Because Apex just liked the fact that the Freedom Arch is now in Apex.
Yeah.
And St. Louis is like, can we have that?
Stolen arch.
Can we have that back? And they're like, no.
Yeah, sure, bring down a truck and
take it. If you can figure out how to get it back.
I like that just no one has figured out how to get it back yet.
Professor Paradox refuses to correct this mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Because why would he? Whatever.
How about, like, museums? Is there, like, does the city, like, have a villain and hero museum?
I think they definitely do. I think they have a museum of superpowered history. So basically, like, superheroes as a whole, as we think of them, have really only been around since, like, World War I, World War II. So yeah, I think we definitely have super museums. I think we probably just have one big one dedicated to, like, the history of super people. And it kind of posits that super people have been around basically forever. Because when you get back to, like, mythology, right? Hercules was probably just a guy with super strength who did a lot of cool stuff.
Right.
They kind of posit that most of your, like, gods and mythological figures were just superheroes, which superhero Horus, who claims to be the actual incarnation of the Egyptian god of the sky, strongly disagrees with.
Okay.
She's like, no, I am inhabited by an actual god.
Alright. How is the museum doing financially? Are they thriving? Are they...
I think most of the locals don't really go anymore, but I think it's a big tourist activity.
Okay.
Right? Like, you come to visit Apex and you go to the Super Museum, and a lot of the locals are just, like, kind of over it.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it's probably one of the bigger superhero museums in the area.
Yeah, in the area.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know about in the country, but it's one of the bigger ones.
And, like, the local school systems have regular, like, field trips to go learn about Apex history and all these super people who have helped found our city. Yes.
Like Steely Dan. And
like Steely Dan.
I don't know why all the superheroes they make are like band name puns.
No, I love that.
All the ones I just pull out happen to be band name puns.
Okay,
Steely Dan is a great name for a superhero.
I just figured it's like an industrial city. They had like an old-time superhero named Steely Dan with like a big railroad hammer.
Right, big railroad hammer, steel transmutation powers. The whole deal. Or maybe Steely Dan was actually an unpowered indivial who just had a lot of grit.
That could be too.
Oh, that's legit. I like that. That's real. That's Steely Dan now. Okay. Anyway, back to Apex City.
Speaking of town pride, what else does this town have pride in?
I think we have a couple of sports teams.
Yeah.
So I know the apex boar, the three-tusked boar, is the overall kind of mascot for the town, and I think for most of the sports teams kind of share a boar-themed mascot.
That would make sense.
What's his name? Bacon?
It's gotta be
something. Because it wouldn't be the apex boar, it would be something the boar.
Right.
Yeah. So, Bristles the boar.
Bristles the boar. Bristles is pretty good.
Because it kind of gets the idea that he's kind of tough.
He's a little gritty.
He's a little
gritty.
Gritty. Oh, gritty. Right. So he's a little tough. He's a little abrasive. Mm-hmm. Definitely makes rude gestures at the opposing team's mascots.
Obviously,
like, all the time. Their hockey team is doing very well and traditionally has.
Nice.
I think Christina hit on that their baseball team is just bad.
Yeah, they've been pretty bad for a while now. But
dropped out of the minors.
They dropped out of the majors into what is it? The Triple A's? Is that how baseball works?
I think so. I don't know.
I don't know if this is how baseball works at all, since I've never really watched baseball.
It is now. That's
how it works here.
In this fictional setting in which we're playing
baseball. But they recently did good enough in the Triple A's to move back into the majors, and they're actually doing good right now, and people are like going crazy about it.
Kind of an underdog type of team.
Yeah, and it's kind of sweeping the city. Like our Apex City baseball team is doing great.
Yes.
Yes.
The Underboars.
The Underboars.
Fan nickname for them at this point. They're the Underboars. I don't think they have a football team.
No, they're not big enough.
They got into arena football for a while.
Oh, that's the worst kind.
XFL.
That thing crashed, and the city has just kind of collectively forgotten a bit that it ever existed.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alright, so we have hit on museums and sports. Let's talk about how crime persists in such a vigilante-filled city.
Sure. So your street-level crime is not generally something that is going to attract the attention of a full-on superhero, outside Tony Rex Dakota.
Your purse snatchers and your...
Yeah. Your basic breaking and entering is not something that's really going to be on a super radar, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
When you start talking about, like, much larger corruption, I kind of take the view that if it's under enough cover, if it's done quietly enough, most of your adult superheroes kind of have a larger view of things. They're not going to see what's going on in boardrooms. They're not going to see what's going on in, back alleys, or... That's kind of where more street-level heroes, like, basically you guys kind of come into that. But even then, you can't be everywhere all the time. Overall, there's, 175,000 superpowered individuals in Apex. Of those... maybe 10% are actively doing stuff with them. A lot of these are powers like, my skin is bright pink, or my eyes glow in the dark a little bit.
Laser show!
Yeah, right?
For my fingers.
Right? And of course you're going to have some people that might have stronger powers that just choose not to do anything with them because they don't want the responsibility or the risk or, for whatever reason.
Like the city's top motorcycle injury lawyer, whose face is plastered in all the buses.
Yeah.
Who has some sort of superpower.
Yes.
That I'm just pulling this off the top of my head right now.
I like it. Super speed. He's super speedy.
Yes.
That's how he gets to see you,
immediately.
Immediately.
Yes.
As soon as you, dial the tone in and it starts ringing, he's just there.
He's there. He picks it up and he's there.
Very expensive.
Yes.
He's doing things with a superpower, but he's not fighting crime.
Right.
In the traditional sense.
Yeah. He's doing it in a more legal sense.
He's a super lawyer.
Keeping those horrible motorcycles off the streets.
Right?
Gotta.
Motorcycle injury lawyers.
Gotta. Yes. Yeah. No, right? And again, so a lot of your superpowered individuals are doing more mundane things with them. again, if you're super strong, super fast, and super tough, guess what you're good at? Building shit.
Yeah.
Super construction is a thing, because super fights tend to knock over buildings or, cause lots of structural damage.
Especially if I'm there.
Especially if you're there. Christina is going to be playing the bull, by the way, so there's going to be a lot of punching involved.
Yes, and collateral damage.
A lot of collateral damage. And that's just something that Apex has kind of gotten used to. As far as more super crime, well, again, you gotta figure there are as many good people as bad people that have these abilities, because it's not like it discriminates and only gives powers to good people, right? There are bad people that have really strong powers and want to do bad things with them for personal gain or other reasons. And it kind of comes down to who's going to stop them.
Okay. Right. So we're talking about collateral damage and how there's, super building and super things like that. How long does a building typically stay in Apex City? How much of the city has been rebuilt over and over?
I feel like, especially towards the city center, there is almost constantly construction happening, which, to be fair, is true of really any major city, but kind of more so in Apex. It tends to be fast and efficient, but it's always happening. Bulletproof robs a bank, well, that bank has to be open next day.
Right.
So they're going to get a construction team in and get that thing patched up, post-haste. The city definitely has a lot of shelters, because when these fights break out, collateral damage happens, people can get hurt, and people do get hurt, absolutely. And that's where Apex probably has very dedicated EMTs.
I'm sure.
So it's an exciting place to live, and I think the citizens kind of have to be used to that, or at least able to deal with it. So Apexians tend to be very tough people.
Or have very good insurance policies.
Probably a little bit of both.
Ooh, yeah, being an insurance agent in this town.
Oh god, so much bank! You were going to make so much bank. Because everyone has to have it.
So, would a superhero destroying your house be considered an act of God?
If Horus does, yes.
Well, there you go. So insurance companies don't have to cover Horus-related damage.
No, it's true, and that's why they try. I think, and again, I sort of hinted at this in Horus's write-up. She is not well liked by the regular population. Yeah. She's probably one of the more powerful superheroes in Apex, but she does not care about collateral damage. So
no one cares about collateral damage. He's a jerk.
Right?
But anyway.
Yeah, right? I mean, Axiom definitely does. Axiom tries not to. The Sentry definitely does. So, most of your heroes, even to a degree, Tony Rex Montana, it's just he's a T-Rex, he can't help it.
Yeah, he's
Tony Rex Dakota, man.
I'm sorry. I made a Scarface reference. I feel dirty.
Yes, you did.
Sorry, Tony Rex Dakota.
Tony Rex Dakota.
Named for very early T-Rex fossils. Were found in Dakota.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, wow. Rambling. But as for how crime persists, it's largely because there are as many super bad guys as super good guys, and street-level crime tends to be beneath the notice of your adult heroes.
Right.
So it's kind of like how crime exists in any major city, just scaled up a little bit.
Right. Is there some sort of, mentoring system for the older heroes? Is there some sort of communication between, Horus and one of our characters?
There definitely could be, if you want there to be.
Yeah.
As far as officially on paper, no. Unofficially, Kobe, like we talked about earlier, definitely tries to hook up heroes, the older heroes with the younger heroes to try and teach them how to use their powers responsibly. They probably don't do that with Horus, because for obvious reasons.
Do they get some sort of, tax credit for doing that?
Oh yeah, what's in it for the superhero?
Yeah, what's in it for the adult heroes? Generally doing the right thing, right?
Right.
A lot of these heroes do have secret identities, so, everyone knows more or less who the first Axiom is. Some people know who the second Axiom is, and at this point in time, no one knows who the third Axiom is. And that's kind of, as the modern age gets more and more real, as the supervillains get more and more dangerous, you see heroes keeping their identities more and more secret. So to get a tax credit, people kind of have to know who you are.
Except for Tony Rex Dakota.
That is his actual name. And you can look him up in the phone book.
Tony Rex Dakota.
Did somebody steal your car? Call Tony.
Call Tony! He'll help you out.
He'll give you a ride to work as a T-Rex, and then he'll go find your car while you're at work.
What a good dude. Oh, just a nice guy.
Good guy, Tony.
He is. Tony's a good guy. He's just got an unfortunate power set.
Poor Tony. He's working the best with what he's got.
I don't know how Tony funds anything. He's a superhero full time. I guess he has speaking engagements.
I guess that could be, yeah.
Right? Like, if you could get a T-Rex to lecture your team.
I guess he could just hunt for all his food.
I mean, I feel like he's too nice a guy. I think he might be a vegetarian.
Could he survive?
Well, he's not a T-Rex. He just turns into one.
Oh, okay, I see.
He's a dude most of the time.
Okay, just a guy.
He's just a guy.
Alright.
That turns into a T-Rex.
Just turns into a
T-Rex. Can he, be a T-Rex forever? Because why would you ever stop?
I would never want to stop. There are situations where it would be very hard to be a T-Rex, though.
Can you imagine trying to take an elevator?
No.
Or see a movie?
Well, you wouldn't have to take any elevators.
That's true. You're
there.
2 stories tall, yeah.
Yeah.
Just look in the window, you're fine.
And, movie-wise, you just find a drive-in. That's what I would do if I was a T-Rex.
Okay, so Apex City definitely has a drive-in.
Nice, alright.
Yeah.
I guess Tony Rex Dakota frequents it.
Does he own it?
Oh, that's how he makes his money!
He owns a chain of drive-in theaters?
Yes! Oh, perfect. That's brilliant. I love it. Yes.
Nope, lost
So,
it.
on that vein...
Yes.
Are any of the big superheroes in Apex City, do they have, national fame? Do any of them have, action figures or TV shows or anything like that?
Axiom definitely does.
Okay.
Axiom's comics exist both outside of continuity and in continuity.
Okay.
So you can read about Axiom in the All-American Axiom, and kids in school can read the All-American Axiom, if that makes sense.
So these came after?
Yes. All-American Axiom in canon was printed after the first Axiom retired.
Okay.
Got it.
So, obviously, Absolute Axiom isn't being printed in fiction yet. But yeah, no. Axiom is very much a public figure.
Okay.
Even the current Axiom having a secret identity, everyone recognizes the Axiom armor, everyone recognizes the suit. The population as a whole probably doesn't even realize it's a different guy yet. Mm-hmm. As far as other heroes having, monetized their existence, some do.
Okay.
The Sentry emphatically does not.
Okay.
Tries not to. Tony Rex Dakota, as we have talked about.
He seems like the kind that would have his own television show, a cartoon.
He writes it. He writes and draws and produces.
He probably does have a TV show, but it's public access cable.
Yeah.
It's the Tony Rex Dakota Power Hour.
Yeah. Are there any sort of original superheroes that are only fictional in Apex City?
So, fictional heroes in a superhero setting.
Yes.
I like that idea. I hadn't thought about it, to be perfectly honest. I think there definitely are. And if you have any ideas as to who those could be, they can be canon. So,
nice.
If we see your character reading a comic,
right,
you can tell me who's in it.
This is a thing that's in, in a real TV show.
Okay.
The Cape.
Yes.
The Cape. In the Cape universe, became the Cape to send a sort of message to his son, who he read the Cape comics with.
I see.
And I think that is a very interesting dynamic that I've never seen explored in any other sort of superhero media.
It's like a real person taking on the mantle of a fictional person.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I like that. Mm-hmm. I am going to have to think about it.
Right.
Would they get sued?
I think they would.
How would you
well, they never go into that in the Cape because it's a poorly made show. And I can say this because I've watched all of it.
If anyone who made the Cape is listening right now, I'm so sorry that Lenny hates you.
The only good things that came out of the Cape were the jokes on Community about the Cape.
That is a hard stance. Putting the Cape on blast. This is a show from early 2000s. Oh.
I want to say 2010, 2011.
Okay, so it's like 6-7 years ago at this point. Okay, well, topical.
Yes.
So Apex City, I guess. It's a tough town full of tough people, and it has very much a feel of, we're gonna just do what we do in the face of all of these super shenanigans.
Carry on.
Yes. It's like New Yorkers. Anything happens in New York.
Right.
And they ignore it.
Right.
So, you're probably walking briskly towards a shelter, but you're not making a big deal out of it.
Right. What in Apex City has contributed to that feeling? Were there any major events that the Apex City is like, yeah, this is bad, but it's no catastrophic event that happened 50 years ago.
There is one event that we're kind of going to get into in-game, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but there was a point where a large section of the city center especially was destroyed, like leveled to the ground, and this kind of set the bar for what is considered a catastrophe. There was obviously quite a lot of loss of life, but surprisingly little given the people involved. And so after that, after the rebuilding, Apex has just kind of gotten on with its daily life. And anything less than, like, you know, a city block being leveled is really nothing to get upset about. Because you know it's going to happen. This is a danger of the city you live in. Thank you guys so much for being
no
here.
problem.
And we will see you next time.
Heck yeah.